Morning of August 6, 1945, the city of Hiroshima woke to another ordinary summer day. People walked through the streets. Workers prepared for another shift. Nobody knew that within minutes their city would become the first target of an atomic weapon attack in human history. 8 o'clock in the morning, a single bomb exploded above Hiroshima. A flash brighter than the sun filled the sky. A powerful shockwave swept across the city. Buildings collapsed. Fire spread through the streets. In a matter of seconds, Hiroshima was transformed forever. The weapon that caused this destruction was unlike anything the world had ever seen. It was created through years of secret research, using discoveries in nuclear science to unlock an unimaginable amount of energy. The atomic age had begun. But the bombing of Hiroshima was not the beginning of the story. It was the final chapter of a conflict that had already consumed the world for years. By 1945, the Second World War had become the largest and the deadliest conflict in human history. Germany had surrendered. After years of fighting across Europe, millions celebrated the end of the war on the one continent. However, the Pacific War continued. Japan remained determined to fight despite suffering losses. American forces had captured island after island, pushing closer toward Japan itself. Battles such as Iwo Jima and Okinawa showed how fiercely Japan forces would defend their homeland. For American leaders, the next step presented an impossible decision. An invasion of Japan could lead enormous casualties on both sides. Continuing the war through conventional bombing and blockade could prolong the conflict for months or even years. At the same time, our secret project had reached its final stage. Thousands of scientists and workers had spent years developing a weapon to end warfare forever. The United States had created the atomic bomb. Now, with Japan refusing to surrender, leaders faced a decision that would shape the future of the world. The story of Hiroshima began not with the explosion itself, but with the events that brought humanity to that moment. The path toward Hiroshima began long before 1945. During the early 20th century, Japan transformed into a powerful industrial and military nation. Its factories expanded. Its navy grew stronger. Its leaders believed that expansion was necessary to secure resources and influence. In 1931, Japan occupied Manchuria in northern eastern China. Years later, a larger war began between Japan and China. The conflict demanded enormous amounts of fuel, metal, and other materials. Japan depended heavily on imported resources to maintain its military. Oil became especially important. Without fuel, ships could not sail, aircraft could not fly, factories could not continue producing weapons. As Japan expanded across Asia, relations with the United States became increasingly hostile. The United States responded with economic restrictions, including an oil embargo in 1941. Japanese leaders faced a difficult choice. They could withdraw from their expansion plans or attempt to secure resources through further military action. They chose war. The main obstacle was the American Pacific Fleet, stationed at Pearl Harbor. Japanese commander believed that joining the fleet would give them the time to expand across Asia without immediate American interference. On December 7, 1941, Japanese aircraft attacked Pearl Harbor. Hundreds of planes struck near the naval base in Hawaii. Ships were destroyed. Aircrafts were damaged on the ground. More than 2,400 Americans were killed. The following day, the United States entered the war. The conflict quickly spread across the Pacific. American industry produced enormous numbers of ships, aircrafts, and weapons. Major battles turned the tide of war. By 1945, American forces were approaching Japan itself. The war that began with a surprise attack had become a struggle for survival, and as the fighting reached its final stage, a new weapon was about to enter the conflict. While battles continued across the Pacific, a different kind of war was taking place in secret laboratories. Scientists were racing to create a weapon based on the power hidden inside the atom. During the late 1930s, researchers discovered that splitting the nucleus of certain atoms could release enormous amounts of energy. The discovery created both excitement and fear. Scientists worried that Germany might develop the same technology and create a weapon capable of changing the course of the war. In response, the United States began one of the largest scientific projects in history. It became known as the Manhattan Project. The project brought together thousands of scientists, engineers, and workers across several secret locations. Most people involved had no idea about the full purpose of the work. New facilities were built, massive amounts of resources were invested. Every detail was protected by strict security. The scientific team was led by Robert Oppenheimer. His group included some of the greatest scientific minds of the 20th century. Their goal was clear: create an atomic bomb before Germany or any other nation could achieve the same breakthrough. The challenge was enormous. Scientists had to solve problems that had never been faced before. Engineers had to build completely new facilities capable of producing the materials needed for the weapon. After years of research, the project reached its defining moment. On July 16, 1945, the first atomic bomb was tested in the New Mexico desert. The explosion was far more powerful than any conventional weapon ever created. A massive fireball rose into the sky. The force of the blast proved that humanity had unlocked a new terrifying source of power. The test was successful. The weapon worked. But now, another question remained. Should it be used? By this point, Germany had already surrendered. Japan continued fighting despite its worsening situation. American leaders believed an invasion of Japan could result in enormous casualties. The atomic bomb offered another option. It promised a way to force surrender without full-scale invasion, but it also introduced a level of destruction that world had never experienced. The decision would soon be made, and the consequences would change history forever. By the summer of 1945, Japan was surrounded by enemies and facing defeat. Its navy had been severely weakened. Its cities had suffered heavy bombing. Its economy was struggling to continue the war. Yet, Japanese leaders refused to accept unconditional surrender. Military officials prepared for a final defense of the homeland. They believed that heavy losses among invading forces could create better conditions for negotiations. Meanwhile, Allied leaders met at the Potsdam Conference in Germany. The future of war was the main issue. On July 26, the United States, Great Britain, and China issued the Potsdam Declaration. The message demanded that Japan surrender. It warned of complete destruction if the demand was rejected. Japan refused. With the war continuing, American officials considered their remaining options. A military invasion could cost hundreds of thousands of lives. A prolonged blockade could create further suffering. The atomic bomb became the chosen path. President Harry S. Truman approved its use. Military planners selected Hiroshima as the first target. The city had military importance and had not been destroyed by previous large-scale bombing campaigns. This would allow the effect of the new weapon to be clearly observed. A specially modified 29 bomber was prepared. Its name was the Enola Gay. Inside the aircraft was a weapon unlike anything humanity had ever used. The mission was scheduled for August 6, 1945. As the bomber took off the tiny island, the world moved closer to a moment that will redefine warfare forever. Before sunrise on August 6, 1945, the Enola Gay began its journey toward Japan. Inside the bomber was a uranium weapon known as the Little Boy. The flight lasted several hours. When weather reports confirmed clear skies over Hiroshima, the mission continued. At 8 o'clock in the morning, the bomb was released. Seconds later, it exploded above the city. A massive flash filled the sky. A wave of heat and energy spread outward. Buildings collapsed across Hiroshima. Fires consumed large parts of the city. Thousands of people were killed instantly, while many others suffered severe injuries. The destruction was unlike anything the world had ever witnessed. For the first time, a nuclear weapon had been used in war. However, Japan did not surrender immediately. 3 days later, another American bomber took off from the tiny island. Its target was originally the city of Kokura. Heavy clouds prevented an accurate attack, so the aircraft changed course toward its secondary target. The target was Nagasaki. On August 9, 1945, the plutonium bomb, known as Fat Man, was dropped. Another city was struck by a nuclear explosion. The surrounding landscape reduced some of the destruction compared to Hiroshima, but the damage was still enormous. Factories, homes, and neighbors were devastated within moments. After 2 atomic attacks, Japan faced a situation unlike anything in its history. The country could no longer continue the war without facing even greater destruction. At the same time, another event changed the situation. The Soviet Union entered the war against Japan, launching an offensive in Manchuria. Japan was now facing enemies on multiple fronts. The final decision was approaching. After the bombing of Nagasaki and the Soviet declaration of war, Japan's leaders gathered to decide the country's future. The government remained divided. Some officials wanted to continue fighting. Others believed that surrender was the only way to prevent further destruction. For the first time during the war, Emperor Hirohito personally intervened. He supported accepting the Allied terms. His decision ended the internal debate. On August 15, 1945, the emperor addressed the Japanese people for many citizens. It was the first time they had ever heard his voice. He announced that Japan would surrender. After nearly 6 years of global conflict, the Second War finally came to an end. On September 2nd, Japanese representatives officially signed the surrender documents aboard the US Missouri in Tokyo Bay. The deadliest war in human history was over, but the world had entered a new and uncertain era. The atomic bomb had not only ended the war, it had changed the future of warfare forever.